Hey friends, what's up? Welcome or welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I wanted to talk all about quarterly reviews, personal quarterly reviews to be exact, because I have been talking about this on Instagram, TikTok, now Lemonade, and I've been getting a lot of questions about what exactly a personal quarterly review is. And the first time I ever talked about it was here on YouTube, way back in December before the new year began. So I figured I would bring it back here to kind of do a little bit of a refresher, talk about what exactly a quarterly review is, and also talk about my quarterly review, all of the things that I learned in my first quarterly review of the year, and also how you can set this up for the remainder of the year if you haven't done so already. So yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, so what exactly is a quarterly review? So the way that I created this kind of idea is by looking at quarterly reviews from the professional kind of outlook or the workplace kind of perspective. And when you're in the workplace, quarterly reviews are essentially looking at the calendar in segments of quarters, of course, and then you just track or measure your success between each quarter. So you're looking at numbers, you're looking at data, and it gets really, really analytical. And I decided to take that concept, we're not doing numbers and stuff like that here, but I took that concept and turned it into something that I can do on a personal level. So with personal goals, with personal progress that you want to make throughout the year, I would look at it from a calendar stance in quarters and just keep track of my progress, keep track of my successes, my setbacks, things like that, and just turn that sort of quarterly review that we take very, very seriously in the workplace into something that is also going to be taken very seriously in our personal lives. Because I feel like when we look at our personal goals, we don't tend to look at them as seriously as we do in the workplace. In the workplace, you know, you have consequences for your actions, or if you don't meet certain deadlines, things, you have repercussions for that. And we don't seem to have that same kind of structure in our personal lives because we are our own bosses, right? So I wanted to be able to be a little bit more stern on myself, give myself strict deadlines so that I can keep track and hold myself accountable for personal goals that inevitably help me grow as a person, improve as a person, etc. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I learned a lot, and I'm gonna actually open up my bullet journal because that's where I have all my notes from my quarterly review, my Q1 review, and I'm gonna share with you some accomplishments and setbacks that actually I wrote down, like real examples, if you will. So looking at this is my Q1. I just wrote like a very, very basic page with just a lot of prompts in it, and then I answered my prompts. So the first prompt was 3 words to describe Q1. I wrote innovative, growing, improving, and then I put milestones, my wins in Q1. So I achieved my daily body movement. I ate a lot more of whole food meals. I wanted to make a lot more whole food recipes, and I definitely accomplished that. I got professional help with my skin because I talked about it a lot. I was struggling a lot with my skin. That is also an accomplishment. I started kitchen projects. I had so many projects that I wanted to start, and I actually started them. Put money in my savings each month. Definitely have been doing that. And then read 1 book per month. I have also been doing that. So a lot of accomplishments there, and I feel like a lot of those things would have gotten forgotten if I didn't do this Q1 review, if I didn't have goals way in the beginning of my bullet journal to look back at and be like, okay, did I actually do this? And I did a lot of things that I wrote down in my journal. So I'm really, really proud of those milestones. But let's look at the biggest setback. So my setback that I wrote down was budgeting. So that wasn't necessarily a goal that I wrote down in the beginning of my book where I have like my set list of goals, but I did notice that I had a little bit of a falling back when it comes to just budgeting, and that has to do with things like putting money in my savings, starting kitchen projects and stuff like that. So while it wasn't a major setback, it was something that I noticed, and I wanted to make note of it going forward. And then I have a prompt, the most important lesson learned. The lesson learned that I have here is boundary setting. I wrote down that it's non-negotiable, and it helps me focus on what's most important and allowed me to excel, grow, and heal. Another accomplishment that I feel like would have gotten forgotten if I didn't write it down here in my Q1 review. Then I wrote some things like money well spent, money wasted, which worries were unnecessary. I think this is really important in terms of mindset, because if you go into another quarter with a really bad mindset, you're not going to be setting yourself up for success there. So I wrote down that. I also wrote down what was time well spent. So also, you know, acknowledging successes throughout, also in terms of mindset. What was time wasted, a good habit I learned from Q1, a bad habit I stopped in Q1, a good habit for Q2, so now looking forward, a bad habit to get rid of in Q2. And then I wrote down a list of things that I wanted to improve on, which have like really, really specific stuff that goes back into my 2023 goals, because I want to make sure that I'm carrying over everything from my goals into my quarterly review so that I don't forget any of those things. So some of those things are podcast work, because I really, really haven't been doing much work at all on the podcast. Budgeting, which is something that I talked about in my setbacks. Art / personal / fun hobbies. I always fail at this, so that's another thing that I want to improve on. And then just consistency of workflow, just general work type stuff, because I do like my own content creation and stuff like that, so that's also a part of this whole thing. I just didn't talk about that because that's probably boring. But yeah, that is my quarterly review. A very, very general sense of it. I spent a lot of time going through this review. I really wanted to sit with my feelings, with my reflections, my wins, my setbacks, and really, really do a lot of dive deeping in there, because that's the same thing that you would do in the workplace, right? If you had some numbers that were short, you would definitely in the workplace work on a way to get those numbers to go up in the following quarter. So I took myself really, really seriously when I did my Q1 review. I spent like half the day really just getting into all of the nitty-gritty details, and I ended up writing myself questions moving into quarter 2 so that I have things to work on as soon as Q2 starts. And we are now in Q2, and I am working on those things, and it has just been a really, really good experience. It really helped me acknowledge my successes and made me feel good about myself and in the place that I'm currently at, while also acknowledging that I have some setbacks and I can definitely improve. There's always room for improvement, and I'm excited to actually do that. Okay, so let's talk about how you can set this up for yourself if you've never done a quarterly review. I talked about this very, very briefly in that December video where I'm talking about like planning and setting yourself up for a new year, but you can always start whenever you want. So I have a list here that I'm just gonna quickly go through. The first thing that you wanna do is mark your calendars. So I highly recommend Google Calendar. I've talked about it on the channel a lot, but Google Calendar has reminders. You can go in and customize all of that fun stuff. If you want information about that, you can check out that video. But mark your calendar at the end of each quarter. Just put a little reminder on your calendar so that it'll ping you either a day before or the day of or a week before, whatever it may be, to let you know that you're nearing the end of your quarter and your quarterly review is coming up. That will just help you keep track of your progress, of your goals, and how far you're getting with your goals for each quarter, and to also prepare you for that reflection, for that review, which I think you should spend a good amount of time doing because it's worth it. The next thing is to refer back to your goals, notes, and anything you wanted to work on since the start of the year. So like I said, when I was doing my quarterly review, I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget anything. So I kept referring back to the really, really beginning of the year, January, where I wrote down a list of all of my goals. And in my review, I went through every single one of them, my successes, my setbacks, etc. The next thing, which is kind of what I was just talking about, reflect, analyze, make notes, and ask yourself questions. So you're reflecting on all sorts of things, good, bad, anything in between, and then you're going to analyze things. So like say for example with the podcast, that was a setback. I didn't really work on the podcast that much. So analyze what exactly went wrong there, or I would analyze what exactly went wrong there, and I would make note of what I need to do going forward to make sure that I don't neglect it yet again, right? So those are the notes that I'm talking about. And then asking yourself questions. If there were setbacks that you didn't really understand how you got to that setback, or you need a little bit more digging, you need to do a little bit more research on that to make sure that you know exactly what you need to do going forward. For example, for my budgeting, how did I get to this place where I wasn't budgeting as properly as I should have? I would ask myself questions, write those questions down in like a little Google Keep note so that I can research that going into Q2 so that I know exactly I need to spend less on this category, spend more on this category, etc. I hope that makes sense. And those questions, by the way, are a really, really good way to set yourself up. I talked about this very briefly, but like it makes you feel confident that you have your footing really, really stable going into the next quarter. You don't feel like, oh my gosh, it's the next quarter. Now what? These questions are gonna help you start really, really well and get you on a good groove. And then you'll be into Q2 before you know it, and you won't feel intimidated, confused, or overwhelmed, which is very ideal. And then the last thing is to make sure you feel prepared going into the next quarter on action plans and goal progress. So every point that I'm saying is kind of like segueing into the next point. But yeah, feeling prepared going into the next quarter, again, having those list of questions that you have for yourself. What I did with my personal list of questions is that I dissected them down into actual bullet points. So say I had a question to myself, how can I budget better? I wrote down points like, look into how much I'm spending on X category. Look into how I can save on Y category. And those are action plans. So now that it's in Q2, I will go through these bullet points, I will address them, and those are actions that you are already applying to Q2's success. So you are, past you is continuously setting you up for a really, really great quarter. That's the best thing that you can do when you're working on personal goals, of course, because it's all about you and you're the only one that's in control and in charge of that. All right, friends, I know that went very, very fast, so I hope I was able to answer any questions, any confusions that you had about personal quarterly reviews. If you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comments section. I am more than happy to talk more about this on a long form kind of front, but if you want short form kind of inspo, if you want little boosts of, inspiration and motivation throughout your days, I post pretty much every single day, multiple times a day on Instagram, TikTok, and now Lemonade. I'm absolutely obsessed with Lemonade. Let me know if you want to know more about that as well. But yeah, you can always check me out there. I have a bunch of guides, I have a bunch of inspirational videos and stuff like that. So check me out there if you want, but stay tuned and leave a comment down below if you want to see more long form content on this topic. And thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much. Good luck in Q2. Good luck on your personal goals and growth. I believe in you, and I will talk to you in next week's video.